SimPvP is a survival Minecraft server which has existed on the same map since 2011. Over the course of 8 years, the server has developed a unique history. Come explore the various chapters of that history in these episodes of The Complete History of SimPvP.
I don't know why. We may not be perfect, but heaven knows we try. But all around, even our old friends put us down. Let's drop the big one and see what happens.
So it would probably be better to start off right where we left off, with the construction and continuation of the members of Eden as they move throughout their subsequent bases. So, as we all remember from last episode, Eden was griefed by World Ruler 086, and the next base that they all based at was Avalon. Now, interestingly enough, it is stated that World Ruler 086, who allegedly griefed Eden, was allowed to take part in Avalon. This was due to the reason that he griefed Eden in the first place, which was a result of a dispute about the world border limit that had been going on for a few months at that time. He immediately felt guilty and was forgiven and allowed to take part in later building projects. The other members of this base were Lone Soldier 55, Little Box of Emo, Boxy Liz, and a few others that are unnamed by the wiki page. But it's basically all of the members who based at Eden. This group doesn't really have a name, but they're kind of collectively referred to as those who based at Eden, or for sake of brevity in this video, I will refer to them as Edenites. Avalon was founded in early 2013, at the beginning of the Golden Age. After Avalon, the Edenites moved on to subsequent further bases. In addition to this, they began to make ties with the established players on the server. With the foundation of their new base, the Hive, they found themselves in very close physical relation to Revstoning Pot's base, Kashik. This resulted in a conjoinment of the two bases into one. Interestingly enough, Rev had actually been looking to join the Edenites for a long time, and he was actually setting out in June of 2012 to meet them when he decided to found Kashik. At a later date, it was Lone Soldier 55, Little Box of Emo, and Boxy Liz who, ironically, found him. Next up, the Edenites, including now Rev and the friends Egg Thief and Oldulwa, founded Damocles. Now, an interesting fact and theorization about Damocles is the fact that Boxy Liz and Little Box of Emo were both nominated to become OPs on the server, which gave them creative mode and other powers that weren't able to be accessed by the general population. It's theorized that the iconic shape of Damocles was created in World Edit, but I can't really verify or dismiss this theorization. Damocles was basically the end of the history on the server of Boxy Liz, Little Box of Emo, and Lone Soldier 55. They would occasionally log on after that, but after Damocles, they never spent the same amount of time on the server that they did in the past. However, one could say that the torch, so to speak, was passed on to Rev and his friends after the early group of Edenites finally left the server. Rev and the Edenites were not the only group of players on the server at this time. There were many others. For example, a player by the current name of Dakadoc and his friend Polygon were also getting their start on the server, founding a rather large for the time base. It was founded in late 2012 and griefed by Immer1 by the summer of 2013. Immer1 himself was affiliated with an entirely separate large group of players on the server. By late 2012, a number of players had established themselves fully on the server. One of these was Mr. Strawman, who had some exploits in the end. Along his way, he met several other players and allied with them, creating his group of Valhalla. These players included Dakadoc, Infamous, Deflo Vesper, the founder of Oasis, Skaterhan1, and Immer1. Many of these players will become very important for later episodes, but it's important to note that Dakadoc in this base was under an alt that was actually called a Dakadoc, whereas in his original base he went by the name Bernie1410. Now, whether or not it was known that they were both the same, or he pulled a Pippinger and it was unknown, is a mystery. I find it more likely that the latter is true, because it would have caused a lot of confusion to have one of Daka's basemates grief his own base. Overall, Valhalla was a very shortly lived base, having been discovered and abandoned in the spring of 2013, subsequently after Jesus Juice, the player, found it. After the abandonment of the server by Boxy Liz and Little Box of Emo, Rev found himself as the leader to a large group of players, including Egg Thief and Oldowa, Mr. Holedigger, Let's Get Tropical, Faux Schnizzle, and Morganrath. With these players, he founded his new project, Mushroom Kingdom, which was a recreation of the Mushroom Kingdom from Super Mario 64. At this point, the entire world border fiasco had been resolved, with the solution a compromise which remains in place to this day on the server. The /world plugin allowed players to trade in PvP in close proximity, whereas the world border limit was ultimately removed entirely, allowing players to build bases hundreds of thousands or even millions of blocks away from spawn. With this newfound ability to explore wide and far, people began to employ the use of the Nether, creating Nether subway systems. One of the players who began to do such a thing was Suit1337, who I've talked about in some of my other videos discussing the Nether subway. His initial build around 2012 or late 2011 was a large tower near spawn that served as a Nether portal hub. Later, Rev and his group collaborated with Suit and linked their Nether subways together. As you can probably tell, a lot of these early groups were not very well defined, and they didn't have rules for interaction. Instead, they were more like loose associations of players who liked building things together, and thus, players of different groups interacted with each other. For example, Morlock and Egg Thief worked together. A bit of seemingly contradictory information exists on the wiki, which I kind of want to bring to attention. The server history page claims that Castle Black was formed in 2013 and was primarily built by Egg Thief, only being assisted by Morlock. However, the page for Castle Black itself claims that it was built in 2011 and built almost entirely by Morlock. The only way to find out which is true is to ask either of them. Most sources corroborate the fact that there was a large alliance between Morlock, L. Andreas 96, Egg Thief, and Legendary Arts, as well as Let's Get Tropical. It's therefore not unreasonable to assume that all of them based at Castle Black and contributed something to it. This alliance existed simultaneously with another alliance involving Egg Thief and Let's Get Tropical. Between them, Rev, Oldawa, Mr. Holedigger, Faux Schnizzle, and Morganthrath, basing at Damocles and Mushroom Kingdom. The first mentioned alliance seems to have persisted the longest, revolving around Morlock himself, with the creation of Morlock's Castle, one of the first epic and truly vast bases on the server. But it's kind of hard to draw that conclusion given the fact that both bases, Mushroom Kingdom and Castle Morlock, lasted for a similar amount of time. Now, in contrast to these loose affiliations of players, there were two major, easily definable groups which came into existence around the beginning of 2013. Founded by the well-known troll Lizardgiti, a new clan MC Mafia began to take place in the spring of 2013. Now, the formation of this large and massive group containing a vast number of players is complicated and involves an amalgamation of several other smaller alliances and a splitting of further multitudes of alliances. To be frank, looking into it, I could legit make an entire episode just based off of MC Mafia, but I'll try to do it now here. Although it was founded by Lizargiti, the creation of the group can very well be attributed to some of the powerful players who decided to join it and took along their existing alliances. The player Melvin 3000, aka Clipchip, joined early on, and he was significantly powerful because he had based with 2 admins and one very well-established player, World Ruler 086. The 2 admins that he based with were Might90 and Natorzy. In addition to contributing his own prestige to the group, he brought Natogris in to the project himself. In addition to this, Melvin 3000 had connections to Mr. Strawman, who was later convinced to join the group as well. Mr. Strawman had connections to Infamous, as well as Immer1. They both later joined MC Mafia. At one point in time, Morlock himself was actually a member. He brought along Egg Thief, who joined. Throughout its entire lifetime, the group contained 44 members. They had alliances with Pippinger, as well as the members of Arcania through Zero Visibility. In addition to this, they were at peace with Snowfrog, as he built Castle Snowfrog for noobs. At one point in time, the alliance was the strongest on the server. However, although it lasted a significant amount of time, with time, its power decreased, and it slowly became irrelevant. Many of the players based at MC Capital or Nara. 2 of the members of MC Mafia were Miniwimi and Infamous. And although Miniwimi later betrayed MC Mafia to go on his own, they both based with Cracky Joe for some time. It can be inferred that Miniwimi, after he left MC Mafia, joined Cracky Joe and M Bricks, who had never joined MC Mafia in the first place. They had been working on their base under their small alliance, Helter Skelter, an alliance that will be important for later episodes. The Golden Age concludes with the foundation and fall of Pippinger's empire. Its members included Deflo Vesper, Morlock, Rumpslim, Captain Crunch, and Dakadoc. In total, it contained 14 players, making it fairly strong. Its bases included Caladan, New Caladan, Tamarisk, Verduloga, Perfuga, Kosa, and Vakros. Pippinger was an overall authoritarian leader, and his subjects didn't really appreciate that in terms of their building styles. When they would all build together, Pippinger would oftentimes impose his own building aesthetic upon them, which made him kind of unpopular. In response to this, Pippinger attempted to reorganize his empire into a republic. However, at this point, the energy of the empire was lost, and one of the prominent bases, New Caladan, was griefed by Dakadoc on an ult. This marked the end of the Golden Age.